Lust is one of the most common and least talked about battles in a man's life. On the outside, he can look fine. He can be in church, he can be serving, he can be leading, but on the inside, there could be a war going on in his heart and mind. And in today's world, that battle's harder than ever. Because what used to take effort now fits in your pocket. And here's the reality. This isn't just a problem out there, it's a problem in the church. Today's episode's about bringing it into light, understanding those things biblically, and then helping men fight that the right way. This is From Faith to Faithful. All right, welcome to today's episode. Brother David, how you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good, good. Got my yard work done today.
Neighbors seen it?
Yes, of course.
Nice.
So I was gone at our couples retreat, and the neighbor must have known I was gone, so he hurried up and did his yard.
Oh,
so
you
when
were
I came
playing catch up.
home, I had the peer pressure to get out there and do my yard, and it had gotten so bad with the weather, the way we've had it. I had to bag it all. I couldn't leave the clippings on the ground. It was just too thick. But when I was done, it looked good. I just looked over my kingdom when I got done.
Your kingdom.
And
No competition or comparison.
I mean,
there.
like I said, it's a healthy competition
Healthy,
in that otherwise I would just let it go in my neighborhood.
Sure.
My yard would look bad and home values would go down. I'm saving the economy is the way I look at it.
I appreciate the work you're doing.
I'm kind of,
Doing a good service
kind of
for
a
all
hero.
us. Yeah.
So,
They don't all wear capes.
They don't all wear capes, no. But some just push a mower.
Nice.
But so how's things been going at home? How's things?
Things are going well at home. Kids are now just out of school, getting geared up for that. I do have this. Okay, so I have a battle every summer. It starts when the weather turns in the spring, and this battle is with our German Shorthair Pointer. I love her to death. Her name's Sahara. We've had her for 10 years now. She was a rescue, so she's somewhere around 12, 13 years old. And this dog, if you know anything about GSPs or German Shorthair Pointers, they are bird dogs. They are beautiful. They run the fields mainly for like quail, pheasant. They will point their nose first and their tails oftentimes crop. But the point is, I think they're gorgeous. I love watching them work. Well, our dog is a natural born pointer. And when we moved here to Indiana, she said, forget about birds. We got moles in the yard. We've got a decent sized front yard.
Probably easier.
Lots of moles. Our yard has gone from beautiful green. It looks like a toddler got out there with a trawl and shovel and just decided to dig in specific areas. Just, let's over here. And so now when I'm mowing, it's like going along in a zero turn and cocoon. Man. So I've tried to figure it out. Well, this battle is I've got mole traps and I've got these different things that I put in the yard. And my wife thinks it's hysterically funny that usually the summer mole season is Sahara a dozen and David one. Well, I got a text this morning she sent out to our family group chat of Sahara's got number one of the season. Where are you at, Dad? And I haven't gotten any, of course. And she has no doubt dug up a new space in the yard that I'll have to be leery and weary of with the mower. But I love this dog, but sometimes I look at her going, why do you have to do this to me?
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, like I said, we had moles when I first moved in, and we really haven't had any the last few years. I know we did a treatment one year, and then we also had a lot of squirrels. Cut a tree out of our yard. That helped tremendously. Right. I haven't had to deal with that. Now, as far as my time as a dad over the last few months, so our big thing has been graduation. Of course, not just as principal, but as dad. This year I had my son, James, was graduating. Right. We did a senior trip, so me and my wife got to go as chaperones on the senior trip. Probably awesome for him to have mom and dad there with you on your senior trip. I'm sure he just sits around at night and is so thankful that he could have mom and dad with him while he was trying to hang out with his friends. Yep. No, then we had graduation, and it is a surreal thing. Last year, my son Tristan did not. He graduated from home, so he didn't end up walking during graduation. So this is my first time handing a diploma to a son in a ceremony like that. I got a little bit choked up. It was funny because I had a 5-minute speech is what I was told. Hey, do 5
And as
minutes.
a pastor, does that mean 8
Yeah,
to
that's
10?
usually like a intro, maybe. But so I was like, I wanted to do what I was asked to do, stay 5 minutes. So I wrote everything out, and I told my wife, I said, hey, let me practice this with you. I knew what was coming, so I just started crying like the second sentence in. I lost it like a blubbering baby, and because I wanted to, and during the speech I said, I asked them to indulge me as a dad for a few moments. I wanted to speak directly to my son because we hear a lot about how hard it is to be a pastor's kid, which sometimes I think that's not as bad as some people say. I think that might be different in different churches. I've never felt like the people at our church treat my kids like they expect something different from their kids, and I feel like our church has always treated them as such. A little harder as principal's kid though. So your dad's a pastor, but then also the principal. I think it's harder to be the principal's kid than to be the pastor's kid, at least in our church. There, it is a thing of like, if somebody didn't like a rule, they'd go to my kids. Why does your dad have this rule? And they're like, talk to him. I don't know. I think it's dumb too. And or if they got in trouble, they weren't just mad at me. They were mad at my kids, as if they did, got them in trouble. And I'm like, why are you mad at me? You're the one who did whatever it was that got you in trouble. But it is hard to do that, and to watch my kids over these last 3 years, not only be a pastor's kid, not only be a kid in themselves and struggling with whatever comes with being a kid and trying to graduate high school, but then also having that expectation as the principal's kid.
Yep.
And, some kids get that easy where they're like, Dad, this teacher just doesn't like me, or this kid did this to me, and this kid did that to me. Well, my kids, when they tell me that, I'm like, well, let's pull it up on the security camera and see what happened. And so we'll just be at home, and I'll be like,
It's not fair.
Cast the TV. Let's watch what you were doing in class. I'm like, oh, there's you with your head down. All right, there's So my kids had the unfair advantage of they couldn't get any sympathy. I'm like, nah, let me see exactly what happened.
Yep.
And so now there were times where my kids were right in what they said, and I tried to be fair with it and say,
You
no,
admit to that?
Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't about me. It was about other people. But no, there were times where I'm like, no, you're right. You shouldn't have been in trouble for this, and but then sometimes I'm like, but then I kept the camera on 2 minutes later, and I found something else that you should be in trouble for.
They're just shaking their head.
Like, turn it off,
There's
Dad.
no
Turn
winning.
it off. Turn it off. But no, I'm very proud of them getting through that. I got 2 more kids there in the school. I'm not sure how much longer I'll do it as principal, but I've enjoyed being able to be a part of my kids' education. But not only that, just the energy of the school. Been fun. But now, looking forward to summer, going on a cruise this weekend.
Good for you.
And there's nothing like end of the school year cruise. You just go, not only do I get to go on a cruise, I get to be in an area where there's no cell phone service. And no one can reach me. And, I'm trying to be frugal, so I'm not going to pay for internet. Just not even going to pay for the internet service on the cruise, so nobody can reach me.
Nice.
And it's going to be nice, and looking forward to that. I'm sure I'll come do a cruise vlog on my next episode of the podcast.
For our listeners and viewers, if you have any cruise questions, this is the person to ask.
I love cruising. And
He's a cruiser.
This is what I did. We'll get on to our episode here in just a moment. So I was stupid. I scheduled my lab work for the Tuesday after the cruise.
Oh, no.
I think I might have scheduled the lab work before I scheduled the cruise, but then I didn't realize, and I was like, man, I'm going to do my blood work after a week on a cruise. Like, I'm going to come back almost ready to have a sugar coma.
They'd be like, you should be dead by now.
Yeah, you should.
How are you
You're
here?
diabetic. We're going to have to put you on all kinds of new medicines. So I called my doctor the other day, and I was like, hey, I'm going on a cruise. I've got a doctor appointment a week after the cruise, but 2 days after I've got the blood work. Doctor said, come in and do your blood work now. So she said, we'll take you at your best right now.
Nice.
I've lost
Good for the
40 pounds since New Year's Day.
Good for you.
40 pounds since the last time I was at the doctor. So it won't be 40 pounds by the time I go to the doctor. It'll
Do you
probably
anticipate
be,
gaining some
I
on
think
the
I'll-
cruise?
So I judge vacations by how much I gain. Because no matter what, just being out of my normal routine, I'm the type of person, I can fluctuate. I can lose, I can gain 10 pounds in a week, and I can lose 10 pounds in a week right after. I fully expect to be up 10 pounds from the beginning of the cruise to the end of the cruise. But I also think that I have a week and 2 days before my doctor visit, so I'll be able to get about 6 of those back.
You sound like a boxer. Like you got to make
Yes,
weight.
got to make weight, but
you
also
made
I'm
it.
like, but during the cruise, I am going to try to go to the gym on the cruise.
Oh,
Yeah.
they have gyms on
Oh
cruises.
yeah, they have a huge gym there. It's really
Okay.
nice. But they actually have the best showers on the cruise ship. The ones in your cabin, everything's real small. The one in the gym, it's like being at Planet Fitness. It's nice. And so a lot of people only go to the gym for the showers. They're like,
just
oh yeah, I'm not working out there. I'm just going to take a better shower. But no, I'm going to try to go to the gym. I'm a morning person. My wife is not. So I'm going to get up in the morning, go to the gym, then stop at the buffet, ruin everything I just did at the gym.
Yeah. Oh, it's
And then-
evening out.
Yes.
That's
And then when I go to the gym or when I go to the buffet, my wife never gets up in the morning for that. I grab a few things, bring it back to the room. She eats on the veranda or the buffet.
chivalry's not dead.
Yes, I know. I got to get the bacon and the muffins, and and then we come back, and then I just kind of hang out, and she eats a little breakfast, maybe reads a little bit, and then we get our day started.
Nice.
The cruise life is a great life. Then you got to come back in reality, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not being served hand and foot, and I don't have just gobs of food everywhere, and so yeah, then you got to get back to reality. A little tough.
Well, that sounds fun, man. I'm happy for you.
You guys do a summer vacation? I know, but being homeschooled, you can go vacation anytime y'all want.
Yeah.
When prices maybe are cheaper and crowds
We
aren't
have
bad. But
for several years we've done that. The last summer and this summer, our 2 girls have been working at a Christian camp, one that you know very
shameless
well.
plug, Indian Creek Baptist Camp.
It's a
camp.
great place, and they love it. So that if we could go somewhere, we wouldn't be taking them. Our 2 older kids, they work. Our oldest is finishing his degree, doing online courses, which you can do anywhere, but sometimes make it more difficult if you're going anywhere. So this year, all that combined with our son's getting married in August, we decided, hey, if we're going to do anything, it's going to be in the fall or toward Christmas. Unfortunately, and I say that it's a good thing that all these things are happening, but we do look forward to summer vacation.
We did the opposite. We were like, okay, summer, kids are going to be at camp. We can go away on a cruise while the kids. So our cruises while they're at camp, so that we don't have to take the kids with us.
Nice.
For this one, this is a anniversary celebration for us.
I'm getting VBS vibes.
Yeah.
Take them,
Yeah.
take them.
Now we are this is our anniversary celebration, so we'll do something different with them later on. But we're like, no, camp. That's when to do it. Camp right there. But
That's a good idea.
yeah, but no, camp. Your daughter's working out there at the camp. It is a great camp. We're actually going to try to go out there in a couple of days. Since I won't be able to come out during the camp week, I'll come out on
be on the cruise.
Thursday. Yep, while I'm in the Caribbean.
Yeah, rough life.
Eating my escargot, and
somebody's got to do it, right?
Yep, we got to do it. All right. Well, today's episode is one that, again, I think I might have mentioned this at the end of the last episode, but we had tried to record this. We had some audio difficulties, so I know it's been 4 weeks since we put an episode out. I do apologize for that. We try to get together every 2 weeks and do this, but with the audio, then we just didn't have time to redo that one, so we had to kind of wait the next 2 weeks to be able to do it. But today we want to talk about dealing with lust. And I do think, do you think that, we often say there's even a book about this, kind of talks about every man's battle. We may be guilty sometimes of overgeneralizing that maybe some people don't struggle with it as much or in the same way. But I think we can safely say, as a general rule, most men are going to struggle with this in some form or fashion, which I think makes sense in that Scripture talks so much about it that there must be a common trend. It's not an America issue.
Right.
It's not a 2026 issue.
Right.
We'll talk a little about this later on, that internet pornography is rampant, but the internet didn't bring this problem. This has been a problem forever. Like, you read in Scripture, it's amazing. You start in Genesis, and it's like, when do you start seeing the problem of lust come up? It's like, pretty early. Judah, with his daughter-in-law, and he has an affair with her, and then when they call him on it and said, that was your daughter-in-law, he's like, I just thought this was just some other woman.
Right.
That was his answer. Not like, I shouldn't have done that. He was like, I didn't know it was my daughter-in-law. I just thought it was some other woman. And, what we really come down to, though, is that lust isn't just a physical problem.
Right.
It's a heart issue.
Absolutely.
The Bible says that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. So Jesus wasn't just dealing with the action. He said, you think about it. You're already guilty in your heart. He was dealing with that desire. And I just think that lust, we sometimes will, and we will talk about it today, about some of the outward things that happen, but that begins in the heart way before it ever shows up in behavior.
Absolutely, it's a hard issue. You were talking about, is this prevalent with men? It's not an America issue. It's not a now issue. I tend to think, and granted, take this with a grain of salt if you're listening to this. I am a pessimist by nature. I try to not be that way, but I tend to look at the faults first, and here's what's the bad's gonna. In any case, I think the stats that we're given about lust and what we look at, pornography in general, or specifically, I think those numbers are really, really low. When we hear polls that are taken, or out of a survey of this is what Americans say, and this is what Christians say, and this is what pastors say. I don't have any basis for thinking that, other than it's just what I'm thinking. But I tend to believe that those numbers are generally low.
Right.
You're right. There have to be. Not every man's the same. There have to be men that don't struggle with this, but by and large, I think lust is a universal.
When they say we did an anonymous survey, I wonder how many guys were like, "Yeah, I don't believe this is really anonymous."
No.
And so they don't give the truthful answer.
You got my number. You must know.
Right. There could be a camera somewhere as I'm filling this out. I just think that there are a lot of people that will tell the truth. That's why the numbers are so high.
Right.
But I also think there's still some who are either, for one, lying to themselves.
Yep.
I do think there are some that when they say, "Hey, are you actively looking at bad websites? Do you have a problem with this?" People are like, in their mind, "No, I mean, it's just every once in a while. It's not. I don't count that as a problem."
Yeah. What's the definition of the problem? Yeah.
Right. And so I do think that comes into play with that. And also, we have, as our own best lawyer, we have spent most of our life trying to justify everything we do.
Sure.
So we tend to minimize the issue to begin with. That, well, it's all guys struggle with this, so it's not a big deal. One guy told me one time, "Well, as long as I don't do anything about it." No, that's exactly what Jesus said.
Right. Right.
So they're like, "Oh, well, if I didn't do anything about it, then it's fine." While I'm sitting here thinking all these things,
just as bad.
And we don't talk about it now. I have a pastor friend of mine. He said one time it got super awkward in his church. He said, "I believe in confessing our faults one to another, but there is a limit." And
there's some things that maybe you want to.
So he said he had a guy in his church, older guy, stood up and said, "Pastor, I need prayer. I got to confess." And the pastor was like, "Okay, what's going on?" And he goes, right in front on a Wednesday night service in front of everybody, he says, "I've lusted after every woman in this church, every single one of them." And the pastor was like, "Okay," and he said, "No, Pastor, every one of them." And he's like looking around the room like. And I can't imagine the awkwardness in that room. But so there's a reason we don't talk about some things. Yeah. You wouldn't necessarily come to church and be like, "Let me tell you exactly how I struggled with that in this area."
Right.
But it tends to then get so minimized that we're just like, "Nah, it's a problem everybody has."
There's some comfort in the group.
Right. Think. Yeah. And it's not harmless though. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's harmless. And, there's a direction in that. And that direction always leads somewhere. And in this area, that always leads to destruction.
Right.
And so...
Absolutely. And that it doesn't harm anyone, we know that's a lie from the devil.
Right. And so I mentioned in our church service recently, in 2015, Ashley Madison website had a leak, and
I remember that. That's
a bunch of married men around the country were exposed. And honestly, it was mostly men. There was like 1,500 women and 20 million men on that site. And I just, many of them probably, because there was such a disparity of men and women on there, most of them they never had an actual affair based on that site. But that's what the site was for, was to help married people find somebody to have an affair with. And I just thought, man, when that leak happened, while I'm I'm glad God's word is true. Be sure your sin will find you out. I can't imagine what it was like for those guys whose life got ruined because what they did in secret got exposed.
Came out in the light.
And their wives confronted them, their kids confronted them, there were pastors, their churches confronted them, there were businessmen who, their co-workers confronted them. I mean, there were many suicides, many resignations, many divorces that came because of that. It leads to destruction. And one thing that as a husband and as a dad, we have to think sometimes, we're going to look our kids in the eye.
Yeah.
And if something like that gets a root in our life, it can destroy us, and then we have to look at them, And I can't even fathom if something like that happened, having to look at my son Caleb and look at my son Tristan and look at my son James and say, I have tried to lead you guys and I fail in that. That would be heartbreaking. The sin enough is heartbreaking, but then the destruction of the trail and that idea of it's just a small thing. It's not harmless.
No, it's not.
It lies in wait to destroy. And so the first time you have a problem with lust or the first time you have a problem with internet pornography, it doesn't destroy your life right then. It'd be a lot easier to fix it if it was just a one-time thing and it got exposed right away. But usually when these things happen, people are so deep into this because the devil lures them in gives them safety for a little while. There is pleasure in sin for a season, but the Bible says your sin will find you out, and that season's going to change.
That's right.
And the lie that they're told is it's harmless, it doesn't affect anybody but me, it's common, so that means it's okay. That's tough because it's just so hard to get traction on trying to get back to being right if we can't admit where we're going wrong.
Yeah. Isn't it so true that we have, I think you just touched on it, that we have such an ease with telling ourselves it's not a big deal. When you see it in someone else and the hypocrisy to say, look at them, or can you believe what he did or he admitted to, when it's a prevalent problem that you have to, and we talked about this in the previous podcast, you got to die to yourself daily. And if you've got a problem, and I say problem, I mean, we're going to get into this, the availability of the availability of whether it's images, videos, really anything along those lines to lust after are readily available. And to say, it's not a big deal for me. It absolutely is. Right. That's one of the biggest lies the devil tells us. If you're a Christian, he can't take your life eternally, but he can make it terrible here. Right. And to tell you, it's not that bad. It's still sin. It started in the Garden of Eden. It wasn't that bad to eat of the fruit. Right. It's not that bad. You're just going to have the knowledge of God, of good and evil. It's his sly way of making people believe it isn't that big a deal. It's not that bad for me, no matter what everybody else has to deal with.
Now, so before we, talk about solutions, we got to talk about being honest with the problem.
Right.
And one of the problems facing our world today is pornography. And it's not just a fringe issue; it's a widespread problem, even in the church. I read this stat the other day: about 75% of pastors believed pornography is a problem in the church, but only 25% of them felt like it was a problem in their church. So it's easy to say, man, out there it's getting bad.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we're not dealing with that. Most of them are ignorant of the fact of how much the problem is really on their own porch right now. Yeah. And so I found some stats the other day. There was a survey of 8,000 Christian men. And in that survey, they found that, ongoing porn use is so we're not talking about people who just, when I was a teenager, I had a time of struggle with that. But ongoing porn use is, it's a huge problem facing people right now. So 15% of Christian men over the age of 60 admitted to ongoing pornography use. Then it jumps to 20% for guys in their 50s. 25% for men in their 40s, 30% for men in their 30s, but nearly 50% of men, Christian men, from the age of 18 to 29 willingly acknowledged ongoing porn use. Now with women, it was still the same trend as far as starting low up in the 60s.
Higher age group, yeah.
But from 18 to 29-year-old, you're talking 10% of women. So it is a problem for them. I mean, 1% is a problem, but it's a much lower scale for them. But still that same thing. And I mentioned in church the other day that people are saying yes, but because of this, kids are waiting till longer to lose their virginity. They're not having as much teen pregnancy because they don't know how to talk to somebody of the opposite sex. They just sit around and watch pornography on their phone all day. And so what a warped way to try to justify this horrible behavior that we're seeing. But one of the damages it's causing, though, is it's wrecking marriages.
It is.
Pornography use, again, it's not it doesn't affect anybody. It definitely affects those people. Like I said, I think that the report said that 75% of Christian men said they have viewed pornography. Now, that was an open-ended question. They didn't say how long had it been and how many times do you look at it. But even among pastors, 67% of pastors said that they have struggled with it at some point. 67. Now, many of them, it was before they got saved. It wasn't something they were struggling with in their ministry. But 2/3 said they have struggled with it at some point. So this isn't a them issue. This isn't a 2026 issue. This has been going on for a while.
A long time. Yeah.
This is an us issue.
Yeah.
And so why do you think it's so common, even for guys who love the Lord?
Well, we talked about this before. A couple of reasons. One of the reasons we talked about it before, we think we can handle it. I've got it under control, or I'll, what's the phrase we used? I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Even when you know something's wrong, that might come in. That might be repeated throughout multiple podcasts, especially when it comes to men. The other thing is, we talked about it, we can justify it in our mind. We say, oh, it's not that bad. I'll give you an example, and this is one I want to be careful in giving, no names. There was an individual my wife and I were close with their family, and his wife saw, this is a while ago, this is before most streaming, so I honestly don't remember if it was VHS or DVDs, but it's been that long. But she found some pornographic videos, questioned him about it. He justified it by saying, and here's how warped it gets. And this is a Christian, I believe, saved individual. It was in the bedroom where he kept them. And where the Bible says, bedroom won't be defiled.
Wow.
But that's the warped
Right.
lie that someone can believe. And then tried to, I don't want to go too far into the story, but tried to guilt his wife into saying, well, just if you're a part of it with me. And this is a Christian couple we knew, and you probably know where I'm going with this. They didn't stay married for much longer. Multiple children who I'm sure were at the very least affected, if not drastically impacted by this. You talked about destroying homes. It destroyed this man, it destroyed the home. Without going into too much further detail, many things have happened and none of them good as a result of this. But it was justified because as a man, I can make it sound okay.
Right.
To myself, even if we don't want to admit it. And then when confronted with it, you can either repent or you can try to continue in sin. And this individual continued in sin. So, giving you, I guess, a couple of answers to the question, but that was the example that's still fresh in my mind, even though this was, my goodness, probably close to 20 years ago at this point.
So when we think about, that's part of the problem about why it's so rarely talked about openly is, for one, you start talking about it openly, you'd realize how dumb you sound. Like to say, oh, hey, the marriage bed is undefiled, so I can do these things. Right. As long as it's in the confines of our marriage, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I do believe the marriage bed is undefiled, and I believe a husband and a wife, when they can keep things just.
Well, you notice in this story, I said, this didn't happen until he was caught.
Right.
Then it was an excuse and justification.
Right. And, but also, one of the reasons it's so rarely talked about is, I understand, and there's somebody could probably take a 10-second clip here and make me look bad when I say this. I understand that a man is not going to tell his wife every single time he has an improper thought, because he's not wanting to make her self-conscious and all those things. And so I understand that there is, and you're not going to go to your kids and be like, hey kids, I need to confess to you, I had a bad thought today.
Right.
You know, and you don't want to look like that guy in the church just standing up and saying something inappropriate.
So awkward.
You know?
Yeah.
So I understand why it would be not openly talked about. The problem is we're not finding anybody to confide in.
Right.
Our phones are making everything so secretive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are apps where people can, I can, get random screenshots of your phones out there, but people just aren't using them. Right. So it's available, but they're not embracing accountability.
Sure.
So cell phones are making us so much more secretive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just it's a monster that it's creating, and we've got to learn to talk enough about it to see it for what it is, to see it as not a minor problem, not a just a me problem, but to see it for the monster that it is and see what it really does. Like, one thing it does is it definitely distorts how a man sees a woman, not only just in looks, but how he views women as far as what they're for.
Yeah.
They become a commodity. They become an object to them. I remember early on, when internet was first coming out and things that were like that were happening, I just remember somebody saying, that is somebody's daughter. And if that was your daughter, might be somebody's sister. What if that was your sister?
Right.
True. I saw a video a while back of a teenage boy who was just so distraught because he found out his sister had an OnlyFans page she was showing herself, and kids at his school subscribed to her OnlyFans page. And he's like, all my friends have now seen my sister without clothes on, and I have to go to school with these people.
Yeah.
And it just, like I said, it distorts these things. It weakens our spiritual life.
Absolutely. And
as a pastor, I can't tell you how many times that I've dealt with people, many times, a lot of times an issue like this, I deal more with people who don't go to our church.
Right.
Unfortunately, I've dealt with people who go to other churches, but they can't go to their pastor about it. Oh, I'm too embarrassed. And I have to try to counsel them, go to your pastor.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I know that there could be times where that happens, and it could be somebody from our church talking to somebody else. So when I have most of the stories about this kind of stuff, it's people who didn't even go to church here, but they think, oh, there's an anonymity. I know this guy a little bit on Facebook because he's a pastor. I'll go to him. And one thing that I've found in so many is people who struggle with this have zero intimacy in their marriage. Now, you can argue which came first, chicken or the egg. Were they drawn to porn because there was no intimacy? Right. The truth of the matter is it doesn't matter what came first. You're not going to regain that intimacy while you're involved in this sin.
That's right.
And all you're going to do is, for one, look at something you shouldn't look, but also those guys stew anger and bitterness because they view women as this is what they're for, and they're not getting that at home, so they get bitter and angry, and it just distorts reality. Everything.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to, as Job, when he said, I made a covenant with my eyes that I would not think upon a maid. Now notice he said, made a covenant with my eyes that I wouldn't think on a maid. Not that I wouldn't see, but why? Because our eye gate causes us to dwell and to think and see those things. He understood that the battle started with what he looked at. That's right. What does he see? Yep. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I may be jumping ahead here, so push me back to where we are if I am, but we see that with David and Bathsheba, right? It wasn't a sin for him to be on the roof. Right. It wasn't a sin for him to say, oh, there's someone bathing over there, let me turn. The sin was, I'm going to keep watching. Right. I'm going to lust. And then we saw where that, we can take it as far as you want to trying to cover the sin. She was pregnant. He killed Uriah, her husband, Uriah the Hittite, and then was judged, and their son died. Their son Samuel. It just, and he would be...
Sin, when it's conceived, bring
forth death. And then you see that continue throughout the life of David, frankly, as a judgment for that sin. But, and other sins maybe, but you could see it. I guess what I'm saying is you see it fully there. You can see timeline is maybe the word I'm looking for. You see the start and
Yeah.
The Bible says it brings forth
see
death,
cause
and
and
you see
effect
it.
right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, but one thing I did want to tell you, or respond to you when you said, why is it so rarely talked about? It could just be pride.
Right.
I want to tell any men listening to this, don't be too prideful to go to your pastor, to go to another Christian man and say, hey, I need some, and I don't want to, again, jump ahead about accountability because we will talk about that, but that pride is going to be a big time barrier if you can't just bury it and say, Lord, it's yours, and admit to the sin.
I'm going to change topics for just a brief moment. You said something that sparked something I want to say about going to your pastor. This has nothing to do with the issue of lust per se, but it is crazy to me how many people have a pastor but do not allow their pastor to pastor them. I see people make major decisions in their life, not asking the pastor for permission or like tell me what to do,
Right.
but they don't even let their pastor pray for them. And like, here's a major decision. I'm going to change churches. That's a pretty major decision.
Yeah.
Maybe talk to your pastor about it. I've never known a pastor who I'm sure they're out there, but I've never known a pastor who tried to manipulate and force people to stay at their church. But if somebody says, I'm thinking about taking a job in California, it would obviously remove me from the church, or if I'm going to Idaho, or if I'm going to Arizona, or I'm going to New York, or I could be going 30 minutes away. Doesn't matter. And then you just drop it on the pastor. Like, yeah, we're uprooting our family. We're going to get our kids in new schools. We're going to move across the country. We're going to do all this stuff. We've been praying about it. But you never. So, for one, you robbed your pastor of a blessing of, like, when you got the answer from the Lord, he could have been praying with you and say, we got an answer to prayer, not just you did.
Right.
But same thing, I see people, they have financial needs. They go to other churches because they have people come to us sometimes because they can't go to their church. It's too embarrassing. When they're your church family. They're supposed to love you and help you. Yeah. They're not helping other churches' members. When you have marriage problems, I don't want to talk to my pastor about that being embarrassing. It might work its way into a sermon, But let your pastor you. Let them help you. Let them pray with you. It just, like I said, I see it all the time, and I hear from, I had a pastor just recently tell me about somebody in the church, and you could just see the frustration in their eyes of like, yeah, they had talked to 20 people about this problem, but they hadn't talked to me about it, and now they're leaving the church, and they never came to me and even allowed me to have an opportunity to help them. So same thing applies in this area. But man, let your pastor you. Like, you stand in front of the church, say, I'd like to join this church, so this can be my church family, this can be my pastor. And then you bypass all that.
Well,
so
you just hit on it. From the church standpoint, it's called a church family,
right?
Not church people I might get to know.
Not a church association.
Yeah. Treat them like family.
We're not an HOA.
Go to them with your hardships, and yeah.
So anyway, back on topic here. Again, this is when we talk about lust. It is often a simple matter of, like, we are seeing the symptom, but there's really a deeper issue there, whether it be loneliness, insecurity, boredom, bitterness, really having a lack of purpose. Maybe there are some intimacy issues in the marriage, and this is almost their way of like self-medicating. But it's never just lust just appeared. You were either lingering to look at something you shouldn't have looked at, or like I said, you're just not resolving another issue. You remember Psalm, he said, I'll set no wicked thing before mine eyes. Can't always help it that wicked things get in front of your eyes. David out there should have been at war anyway, but can't always help what you see.
He didn't set that bathtub out there.
But you can't help what is set before your eyes, but you can say, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. Because if you don't guard your eyes, you won't guard your heart, because that is the gate for that.
I remember when I was in my 20s, I was working for a pretty large company at the time, and our general manager used this phrase all the time in business. He said, set yourself up for success. Set yourself up. And it was in the sense of sales and marketing and that venue. But the verse that you just quoted about, say it again.
I'll set no wicked thing before
set no wicked thing before my eyes is exactly that. That's the verse I thought of as I'm sitting in this meeting, this conference room, like, I'm going to set myself up for success. I'm not going to do this to set that.
Right.
That just brings back a memory of 20 years plus, 20 plus years ago of thinking of that verse that I couldn't recall off the top of my head because I am
Such a
getting to
long
that
verse.
age. I know. I will set no wicked thing before my eyes. But setting yourself up for success spiritually, we could go down the path. It's as easy, if you want to call it easy. The spiritual life is not easy in general, but we can make it easy by saying, yes, Lord, I'm just not going to do it, because you hit the nail on the head. We find ourselves in situations, we put ourselves in situations. You might say, oh, what am I doing? Well, I did this actively, even if I wasn't thinking clearly. Like, I've driven to places before, and I hate to even admit this, but we've all done it. You're like, I got here, but I don't know, the last 10 minutes I was either listening to the radio. Exactly. But we're still doing it. It's still on me.
We like to say I fell into sin instead of I dove in.
Yeah.
So we didn't fall in.
I've heard
you
say this before. You know, people say, well, the devil put this in my life, or the devil made me do this. You know what? Devil's only in one place at a time.
For yourself?
Yeah. We did that. You know, the devil didn't have any problems because we were already doing it. Maybe
the devil showed up, but it was already done before he got here.
Yeah, no kidding. The excuses, they don't hold water, is what I'm getting at. Because it's
so what do you think the motivating factor really is that cause men to struggle with this area in particular?
Well, I would say, one, it's natural. And don't think that it's not. God put a desire in us as men to look at women. It just did. I mean, I'm married because my wife, part of the reason, not the full reason, she's smart, she's funny, but she's beautiful. And I was attracted to it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I remember hearing a guy, my kids were younger, his kids were younger, we were in the same church. He says about his daughter, I'm glad she likes boys. I got to keep her to doing what's right, but it thrills my heart that she's got an attraction for boys, you know, getting at that age. And that's the right mindset.
Once said about his college during orientation, I watched an old video online, and he said, you know, you'll get demerits if we catch you kissing. He said, but you're going to get kicked out if you don't want to.
Very true. Good.
He said,
Good point.
He said, you better want to.
Yeah.
But
so I think it's a natural thing to struggle with, and there's nothing to be ashamed about that in. It's you mentioned the root issue, the root cause. The root cause is because we haven't put something else there. If the desire is to look at a beautiful woman, nothing wrong with that, but do it appropriately. Like, I'm going to look at my wife. You look at your wife. We don't look at each other's wives, because there's other Bible verses about coveting and things like that. But I guess the point I'm getting at is, when you remove something, it's filled with something else. I remember being in a youth group, and you were a youth pastor. Youth pastors use a lot of examples in their hands. It seems, I don't know, maybe you weren't like that, because pastors is like, all right, I'm going to preach from the Word. Youth pastor, let's get active. I'm going to have examples. I'm going to use props, maybe. My youth pastor had an example, and he had some cups, and it was saying, when you take something out of your life, he used a cup as an example. Well, you got all this space, it's going to be filled with something. He had other, like, different colors, like food dyes or whatever, into these different glasses. You know, fill it with this godliness, or you want to fill it with sin, or you don't want to, because it's going to be filled with something. It's not going to be vacant. So we can get into, I think that's the next part. I don't want to rush ahead, but the urge is going to be there. The desire is going to be there. I think there can be other drives, though. When you partake in the sin, then your urges and your desires become different. It's not that, oh, it's something there, but if I stay clear, now it's, I got to find a place to be alone, or now I got to find a place where people aren't seeing me. And I got some thoughts on that in a little bit too.
I would say too, okay, so again, over the years, having dealt with people, if you're looking at it on an outward thing, like as a third party person looking at it, you would say in the temporal, fleshly mindset, I have seen guys married to beautiful women who have had affairs with women that I'm thinking, why? You know, even in the fleshly manner, why? Sometimes I think there's a control and a power. I remember hearing about that a lot with one of our presidents in the past, Bill Clinton, about, you know, it was just an insatiable thing of power for him to be in leadership and be able to, I can
get away with it.
I can get away with it. And so I think there's pride and you know, all that comes along with it too. But Kenny Baldwin one time said at camp, man, this would have been 18 years ago. I probably heard him say this. He said, oftentimes women win men without their words, and men win women with their words. And he said, what I mean by that is, he said, if you see a dorky, ugly-looking guy with a beautiful woman, you think one of two things. He's either got a lot of money or he is smooth. And he can talk to the women. He has won them over, and he said, you're thinking it's one of those two things. He said, but like a woman can walk in, she doesn't say a word.
Right.
She just catches their visual creatures.
We are, yeah.
So we are such visual creatures. He said, the woman comes in, and the less she talks, the better. Because he's just attracted at that moment to her visually.
Physically,
obviously, if you're not stupid, you're going to make sure you have another connection there.
Yeah.
But no guy, I've never heard a guy say, I'm going to get married. I mean, man, this woman's ugly, but she's really nice and she does all.
I hear she could cook.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, no. Have you ever heard the song?
If you want to be happy
for the rest of your life, never make a pretty woman your wife.
Yeah, man, but she sure can. Cook.
She sure can cook. But I've never heard a guy get married and be like, I don't find her attractive at all.
Oh.
There's been times when people got married, and I'm thinking, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, But that's who they are attracted. But to them, they find that person attractive. And when they say I find them attractive, they usually mean visually.
Right.
There's something about them that they're drawn to.
Yeah.
And so, we are drawn to them. We are naturally bent to be visually drawn and then to pursue.
Right.
And unfortunately, things that God gives us naturally, the devil perverts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and I also think that we are creating it in our young men, this idea of date as many women before you get married as you can so you can help pick the right one later on. And all you're doing is creating this desire in them to go from girl to girl to girl to girl, whether they're sleeping together or whatever. They're just in their mindset, I'm looking at this girl, then I'm looking at this girl, then I'm looking at this girl. I'm trying to find the right one for me, instead of being chaste and listening to the Lord and pursuing Him, and then allowing Him to find you a woman.
If you're a young man or single man listening to this, you do not want to be married to the love of your life with the thought of another woman, even far as a glimpse in the background, because you'll think of that. You'll make a comparison, and that's not what God intended. We've taught, and I know that this is primarily for men, but we've taught our son and our daughters that it's not just the physical, but I know we're talking about lust, but if you give your heart even over to someone else that's not going to be your husband someday, not going to be your wife, there's a part of you that should be reserved for the one you're going to spend your life with that you gave to somebody else. And now we're talking about lust. It's specific to pornography. You're setting something else in a place where only your wife should be men I'm talking to. And that is a dangerous game that you probably, as a pastor, I've seen it so many times that I can't imagine how many times you've seen it just come back and just bite someone.
Oh, yeah. And now we've got about 10 minutes left here. So how do men fight back with it? How do we get victory in this area? Well, I'll give some, and I'll have you give some here. I think it's important for us to remember it's not just about stop it, like you said earlier about Brother Shetler telling you,
stop.
in our mailbag episode. Sometimes you tell guys, just stop going to those sites, stop looking at this stuff, stop looking at this, stop looking at women and thinking these things. Well, God created women to visually appeal to men. Like, we can't just say, stop it. Trying to think we're strong enough to win this battle on our own is what got us into this mess. So, first of all, it is a lot of times about what are we pursuing. So, by walking in the Spirit, you shall not fulfill the lusts of the flesh, he says over in Galatians chapter 5. And so, you're not going to defeat a fleshly struggle by constantly feeding it the fleshly things. You're going to have to pursue God, and in our pursuit of God, we will abhor those things that distract us and detract us from pursuing that. When I am in pursuit of something, I hate when things get in the way of it. So if I got a job to do, I'm mowing my grass, trying to mow my grass.
Here we go.
I hate when I have to stop to go run an errand to do something. Why?
Right.
I am focused on my goal. How about make pursuing walking in the Spirit my goal?
Yeah.
And I will dislike the things that distract me from that. And so I've got to focus on walking in the Spirit.
Yep. This verse, what I thought about when you're talking about Galatians 5:16, this I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Meaning, if you do this, this will be the result. And our last point is how to fight back. So I was trying to put those two together as we were preparing for this episode and thinking, what do you do to fight? And you could take this as boxing, MMA, you could take it as basketball or football. You go in with a game plan. You don't just like walk onto the field in a football game and be like, all right, do your best. We'll see what happens. You're not going to win.
Right.
You're not prepared. You haven't game planned.
Right.
Well, the Bible is our game plan. These verses that we've...
So you're saying you don't want to fight with apathy?
I don't want to fight with my wife. Let's leave it at that. Did I say that out loud? Can we edit this? You don't win a fight unless you've got a plan. Men are not going to, if you're in pornography, you're not going to win this without a plan. If you're not, I would say still plan, because you will be tempted if you haven't already, which I can't imagine in 2026 you haven't been tempted with lust through pornography, through your phone, through tablets, through whatever technology, take your pick, or just walking in the grocery store for that matter.
Right.
You're going to be tempted. Just take it as plain as day. What have you done to prepare yourself? What have you done to say, I'm not going to be David? And David is a man after God's own heart. It's described in the Bible. If David is susceptible to this sin, every one of us are.
Right.
What are you going to do beforehand? Take Daniel. He purposed in his heart that he might not sin. They wouldn't partake of the king's meat specifically there, but it was purposeful that he was not going to sin. I think the way we fight back is way before the game. I use that air quotes, way before we're tempted. What is your plan for when that temptation comes?
Right.
You know, I hear this all the time, and it's true. We're guys. Have you ever thought about what you'd do if a bridge fell and you're in the car? What you do if an intruder came into the house?
Right.
We all think about that because it's natural to us. We're protectors. We're gonna do this whether it happens or not. I don't know. We're screaming, holding on the wheel, but you plan for it. What is your plan? And we've got plans here we're going to go through, but you need to have a plan that says, when I'm tempted, I'm going to turn away and this is what I'm going to focus on, because otherwise you're dead in the water. It's too strong a temptation to do yourself. And I could say that personally, to say that I'm going to do this myself, I'm going to figure it out, does not work, doesn't hold water.
And the key is, you mentioned, you may not be struggling with this right now. You're in a fight whether you know you're in the fight or not.
True.
Like, the fight's there.
Yeah.
It may not have presented itself to you yet in that way, but the fight is always there. I think that it may not be on a phone. It may not be the same fight, the same confrontation another guy's having, but the battle's there. So I wrote down a couple things here that we could do. The next one here was to remove the access and the opportunity for those things. The Bible says not to make provision for the flesh, to fulfill the lust thereof. Too often we think, I want to show that I can resist this.
Right. I'm strong enough.
We're supposed to, flee from those things.
That's right.
If it's on your phone, if it's in your feed, if it's on your TV or whatever, you just got to deal with it. You got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And if it's an app that you struggle with, delete the app.
Yeah.
If it's a situation of, in your life that there's a place that you go that you know. So like for me, I had to learn early on, there are certain times of the day I do not go to Planet Fitness. I go super early when there's hardly anybody there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Before the crowd.
Because of the crowd, and there are a certain group of people that are there at certain times of the day that it's
apparently
more,
don't wear clothing.
They don't wear a lot, or it's just super tight, and and you're sitting there on the treadmill, and yes, you have a TV on the treadmill, but there's just so much opportunity to see things that you don't need to be looking at. And so I've just decided that there are certain times of the day I don't go.
Yeah.
And so I love the Planet Fitness because on the app, before you go, it'll even tell you, the traffic at the Planet
yeah.
Fitness. So well, there's a lot of people there right now. I'm just not going to go.
Yeah.
And what I really do to fix that is I just don't exercise, and so I don't go.
Yeah.
So I'm protecting myself.
I told you this, I think, a couple months ago, so I'll put this out there for folks. I won't say what social media site app that it is, but I hadn't been looking up anything bad. I'm in advertising and technology, so I was getting AI, artificial intelligence, ads to me. These ads were not good ads. It was, hey, this is what you can create, like videos and or GIF, whatever.
We don't need to have that debate.
Yeah, that could go for a while. But the point I'm getting at is like, you don't even have to be looking something up and it'd be pervasive and right in front of me. And it was weird stuff too. I won't dive into how weird.
Right.
It was just weird. So I just deleted the app from my phone.
Right.
Because while it was where I got a lot of up-to-date news, and because I'm originally from Chapel Hill, and you just don't hear about the Tar Heels when you're in Louisville, Kentucky, it wasn't worth it. So I just took it off the phone. I'm not building myself up. Trust me. I'm just saying, it's a lot easier to hold. I have an iPhone, to hold down, press the X to delete the app than it is to try to struggle with it.
Our generation, that part of it might be a little bit easier because we lived life without this stuff for so long.
Maybe.
For these younger guys, a lot of them,
I don't know any difference.
The idea of cutting some of this stuff out is like cutting out a part of who they are because they just grown up with it. It's so weird to think of it that way. But, for a lot of kids, they're like, I don't ever delete apps. I might not go to it anymore because I got bored with it, but they to get rid of a social media app. But man, it's so much better to, have your life be protected without social media than to have it ruined but be on every platform that's out there.
You're exactly right. I can tell you, I didn't do anything nefarious or sinful on that app, but just having gotten rid of it, knowing what was there, it was like, I don't have to worry about it. It was I wouldn't say it was like the biggest burden lifted, but I had a burden that was there. Like if I'm sitting on the couch, and we do internet stuff at our house in the open. Our living room is the only place where we have a computer. Our kids have to leave phones downstairs when they go upstairs to bed at night. So it's in the open for a reason. But I don't want to be sitting on the couch and have anybody in my family come by and say, "What is that?"
Right.
It was a relief.
And that's closely related to the next point I had, which was to guard your inputs. Because you just got to don't even have these things.
Right.
Just set your affection on things above, not on things of the earth. It's okay to not have every app. It's okay to not be on every platform that everybody else is on.
It is.
It's okay to just limit those things.
Yeah.
And I will say this, as men, that world online, it targets us. Mm-hmm. Your phone knows it's a guy on the phone. Like your phone knows the age of the guy.
Knows a lot about us.
So it will target you. Yeah. The day, this is men hopefully watching this, the day I turned 40, I started getting every day emails about ED. Well, you're 40 now. Let's talk about this issue.
Me too.
Like your phone knows, and it will target those things.
The day, this has been about a year, the day I first buzzed my head, because I, as you can see, needed to, I started getting whatever treatment for hair treatment. Seriously, I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't even take pictures.
Mine was gone before the internet really came around much, so I didn't get that one.
Yeah. No, to your point, though, you get served ads.
Yeah, it knows you. And if you are looking at something on one site, man, Matt Jones used to talk about, he said, obviously there's a targeting that goes on with these ads. But some people would call him and be like, look, I was on your website and this bad ad came up. And he goes, that says more about you than it does me.
It's true.
I run a company, people pick our ads, but they target it towards you. If you're some things are going to happen no matter what. Like you said, yours targeted you because of AI, because you use AI for your work. But he's like, if you're constantly getting ads with random, and not like,
Doesn't sound like an us problem.
Yeah.
Sounds like a you
he
problem.
goes, I have other people that look at our website all the time and never have those ads pop up.
Yep.
This might be something that you're causing, and you thought I could look at your website in front of my wife and kids and it wouldn't be a problem, but because of your other behaviors, it's popping up. And it is, but like I said, your phone knows you. And so they'll target you by your age, they'll target you by your industry that you work in. They will, and if you're just being a man, it will send you things with even just elevated alluring pictures.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell laundry detergent, but they'll send you the ad with a beautiful young lady selling it because they know how many.
The old adage
we
of
sit
sex
around and try to
sells,
say, "Oh, well, don't be
well.
legalistic. Men aren't this and men aren't that." The advertising industry knows
Oh yeah.
how to sell to men because that's what works. They're honest about it.
We generally mute commercials. I shouldn't say that I'm in advertising, but we do, like when we're streaming something, just because oftentimes because of the volume difference. I don't know if you've been watching something, the commercial come on, it's like, oh, I didn't realize Stadium was on. But it was, I don't want to mention the product. There's probably a lot of products that do this, but it was very sensual, very sensual. I didn't have the volume on. I had to turn away. She was in a gown, but it was revealing. It was for laundry detergent.
Right.
I don't know if you know the one I'm talking about, but it was just.
No, I don't watch stuff like that. Honestly, I'm like laundry detergent.
I
was probably at the fridge grabbing some food.
I'm counting down in my head, like, all right, if it's a 15-second or 30-second, look back and very. I don't want to sound stupid, but it was like, how sensual can you pour these things into the laundry machine? Okay.
Yeah. But they, like I said, the ad industry is not trying to justify their behavior. They're trying to sell a product.
Exactly.
So they'll be honest.
And they know
and
what
they'll
sells.
say, this is what sells, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, number 4, get some accountability. Yes, there are apps out there. I understand. They cost a lot of money, some of them. I understand all those things. But even just as much as like you shouldn't be putting your phone in a way that like you can't be seen, always having it upside down so people can't see what's popping up on your phone. Somebody, if you're married, your spouse should have your passcode to turn your.
Yeah.
My wife should never have to. She'll never be stopped by me if she wants to pick up my phone and just open it up and look at what's on there. My phone is her phone.
Yeah.
And so I don't look at her phone because I don't want pictures of all these flowers and all these different things. But she can look at my phone at any time and look through messages. She can look at those things. And if I was to be defensive, like, now
that's a red flag.
That's a red flag. Now I understand. I don't think a wife should be constantly
snooping is different.
Like
just be open.
nitpicking over. I mean, you spent 30 minutes looking at a sports blog or whatever. I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that like if my wife needed to use the phone and she can't find hers and she picks hers, I should not even think twice about handing her my phone and going here.
If I'm driving, I hand it over and say you use the map, and I don't have a problem.
There's a lot of times I'll get a text and I'll say, hey, answer that whatever that it came through while I'm driving. Answer the text.
Same here.
I should never have to be like.
If you are, that's an indicator that a problem exists.
Right.
I would say, so 2 things. One, kind of funny. I look at my wife's phone and then it drives me insane because she doesn't close out like windows. I'll go to either DuckDuckGo or Safari. It's like, how do you have 38 windows open?
That's me.
Oh, goodness. I'm not going to look at your phone because my blood pressure goes. No. But I would say from an accountability standpoint, if you're a Christian, you're listening or watching this, God is omnipresent. There is nothing more sobering than when you think about, and oftentimes we may not think as we're diving into sin, right? We think about it during or after, but if you think to yourself that God is watching me look at this filth right now, number 1, that's sobering to begin with.
Right.
2, I don't want to think about what God's thoughts, and He's long suffering, so He loves us. But what are His thoughts when I've thought about it and I'm going to do it anyway?
Right.
Don't put yourself in that boat.
No, definitely. And that brings me to my last one, which is replace.
Yeah.
Don't remove. Because it will be filled with, that vacuum will be filled with something.
Exactly.
Idle time is dangerous, but having some purpose brings power to it.
Yes.
And so you don't just cut something out. You fill your life with better things. And so get in the Bible.
Exactly.
Be praying. I have these things I was looking at on my phone. How about go for a walk with your wife? You know, bet you won't look at it while you're on a walk with your wife. So replace it with some healthy things.
Read a book.
Yeah.
Read the Bible, read a book. We jokingly, you edit this out if you want, but go back to 90s dumps.
Yeah.
You don't have your phone with you.
Yeah.
Just read a book, read a magazine, read the shampoo bottle.
That's like the go-to answer for us with our kids. Every time they're like, I'm bored. Read a book.
Read a book. We got to drive for 4 hours. Take a book.
Just read a book.
Read some signs.
But yeah, I think that it's very
right.
important that we,
You're right. It
we
does need to be
replace
replaced.
those things. And so, well, men, at the end of the day, this is what it comes down to. God's not looking for perfect men. He's looking for faithful men. That includes your thought life, your private life, the stuff that nobody else sees. You can't live a faithful life publicly if you're losing this battle privately. Got to fight the battle. Got to engage. Guard your eyes. Don't just hope that things don't come up in front of your eyes. Guard your eyes. Guard your heart. Walk with God daily. We've all heard it before. The man you are in secret, that's who you really are.
Yes.
And so at some point, we've got to go from saying it to living it. And that's what this podcast is about. From faith to faithful.
Yeah.
We've got to take what we know and let's go live it. We'll see you next time.